Welcome back. Medical practitioners in Nigeria have backed a global campaign to eliminate trans fatty acids in foods in the country by the year 2023 if the global fight against cardiovascular diseases is to be won. The experts who spoke to Environment Today in separate interviews said trans fat consumption is a significant risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, and it has led to the death of more than 500,000 people globally every year. Our first interview is with the Executive Director of the Nigerian Heart Foundation, Dr. Kingsley Akinroye. All right, Doctor, it's a pleasure to meet you. Now, when we say trans fat or trans fatty acids in the food supply chain in Nigeria, what exactly are we talking about?
4 factors were initially identified as being there to cause heart disease. 1 is unhealthy diet. 2 is tobacco. Number 3 is sugar, as diabetes. And we also mentioned that lack of physical activity has also been recognized, in addition to a few other things. So these 4 factors are very important. But central to all this is the diet. Unhealthy diet is a common factor. And out of all the unhealthy diet, what we recognize is 1, even in this environment, is sugar. Sugar beverages, the sugar in our diet, the manufactured sugar we consume. So all these are very... Number 2 is the fat we take. If you take the unhealthy fat, that is also in your diet. And number 3 in this environment is salt intake. So you recognize 3 factors in Nigeria and in Africa in the diet that damages the heart, even from the womb. Now, you are in my office today to talk about one of them, to talk about fat. What is fat? We do recognize as far back as 1950 by scientific research that fat is very bad for the heart. And why is it bad for the heart? Because fat, the heart itself is like a balloon. And from this balloon that pumps out blood, there are what we call the balloon outlets, which are the blood vessels. They are all balloons. And when you take too much fat, science believes those channels are blocked by fat. And when they are blocked by fat, they narrow the blood circulation to the heart, and they can lead to heart attack. Not only to heart attack, they can also increase the blood pressure. So I'm working this to let you know. So we are broken down this fat now into friendly fat and unfriendly fat. The friendly fat are the ones that we know that are unsaturated. The ones that are not friendly are called saturated. And we also break those ones down into what if the cholesterol part. We say there is the friendly cholesterol, which you call the high level of HDL cholesterol, which is the one that favors the heart. We also have the low density LDL cholesterol, which also damage, which we know that when it is high in the body, it damages the heart. Now, to your question of trans fat. We recognize that trans fat is also a product found in the body, which, when consumed in high content, raises the unfriendly cholesterol. That is the low density cholesterol. And by raising the low density cholesterol, can lead to heart attack. And it decreases the friendly cholesterol, that is the high density cholesterol. So this is what has now come to the fore. And the United Nations Organization, represented on the area of health by WHO, now recognize that the level of trans fat in food, especially all over the world, and more in low and middle income country, is rising. And because of this rise in the content of trans fat in our food, we do now have a regulation that by 2030, we must make sure that we eradicate all trans fat in all food products available all over the world. And Nigeria is also a signatory to this statement.
Is there a policy in Nigeria now that protects or that guides against trans fat in food?
There's no policy here, but we are working on that. It took us almost 40 years to pass the tobacco law in this country. Even though it was free that you can, if you like, smoke cigarette, if you don't like, don't smoke cigarette. But eventually we have now accepted that smoking is bad for the country, isn't it? So we are working, and that is where we are. There are countries that have done so. I can mention a few countries that have done, they have their own policy on trans fat now. So if we are able to have a policy on trans fat signed by the government and by our legislators, you just bound to comply. Because we have lots of food products done on the street that contain trans fat in Nigeria.